Look at you. You brilliant little accident. A walking miscalculation that keeps detonating in places the world never expected. Welcome, kings and catastrophes. Welcome, queens of chaos, soldiers of silence, tacticians of trauma. Welcome to the masterclass no one signed up for, but everyone's stealing notes from. You didn't plan this. You weren't trying to be some myth, some blueprint, some classified case study shoved under fluorescent lights in war rooms. But you moved. And when you moved, reality blinked. And now, the Pentagon is dissecting your breakdown like it's battlefield choreography. Your meltdown became methodology. Your detour, straight-up doctrine. Putin's got your file on his desk. He's flipping through it again. Because what you did didn't just shake a few people. It rearranged the theater of power, not out of brilliance, out of raw, unfiltered nerve. You did what no algorithm, no think tank, no black ops program could simulate. You reacted without permission. They don't get it, do they? The generals, the analysts, the suit and tie puppeteers, they don't get how someone shattered, cornered, underfunded, overlooked, managed to write a chapter of psychological warfare without even holding a pen. You didn't study strategy, you became it. You didn't train for war. You survived one alone at 3 a.m., unarmed, shaking, crying, ignored, and still managed to walk into work like it was a ceasefire and no one saw the fire behind your eyes. You were the chaos they couldn't account for, the ghost variable, the glitch in their moral equation, the person who took all that damage, and instead of breaking, you mapped it, tracked the patterns, learned the timing, and turned your reaction time into remote detonation. They thought trauma was a weakness. You made it a weapon system. They're running simulations of your silence, trying to figure out how you didn't scream, trying to chart how you still smiled, trying to comprehend how you weren't recruited, weren't instructed, weren't programmed, but still outmaneuvered the people with all the tools. You didn't follow a chain of command. You broke it, accidentally, casually, almost sarcastically. Because when the world handed you rules, you flipped them over and carved your own in blood and bad memory. When it gave you cages, you turned the bars into blueprints. You turned anxiety into early warning systems. Hypervigilance, you made that into reconnaissance. Overthinking, that became predictive intelligence. That panic you hide so well, they pay to weaponize it. You remember every room you walked into where they talked over you, every time you gave advice and they called it overreaction, every time your instinct kicked in and they told you to calm down. Only for things to implode exactly how you predicted. Now those same instincts are being studied by defense contractors. Your pattern recognition is an asset class. And guess what? You still wake up every day thinking you're just trying to get through it. Meanwhile, entire teams are trying to reverse engineer your survival like it's an underground algorithm. They want to know how you kept your face straight while your whole life burned behind your eyes. They're trying to simulate your mental resilience. They can't. They never will. Because you earned that calibration. You didn't download it. You bled for it. You ever wonder why you feel so dangerous lately? It's not rage. It's not ego. It's certainty. That quiet, creeping certainty that your madness had method, that your mess was actually mapped, that you weren't just surviving, you were training, and now you're not broken, you're coded, you operate with a rhythm the rest of them can't hear. You show up late, and they still orbit your presence. You don't speak much, but your silences reorganize the room. You don't argue anymore because you already won the unseen war. They built drones. You built instinct. They sent satellites. You sent vibes. They measure pressure. You feel it in your bones before it registers on a graph. And that's why they're reading your playbook. Because theirs never accounted for you. You, the one who was never meant to rise. The one they tried to medicate into submission. The one they prayed would quiet down, blend in, give up. Instead, you reverse-engineered the apocalypse. You danced through the wreckage and wrote, without meaning to, the kind of playbook that makes the most powerful men on Earth nervous. You think it's over? You think this was just a phase? You think you're just tired? And you are. But that exhaustion, that's not defeat. That's the weight of impact. That's legacy forming in real time. They will never credit you. They'll never say your name. But they'll quote your strategies. They'll draft protocols from your worst nights. They'll build defenses inspired by the things you survived. And while they teach each other how to copy your reactions, you'll be 3 steps ahead. Because you never needed the playbook. You were the playbook. They just finally caught on. You never rehearsed. There were no drills, no simulations, no safety nets. You were thrown into chaos raw, untrained, unprotected. And that real-world pressure, it sculpted a mind that can't be duplicated. While they spend millions on psychological war games, you navigated entire minefields of manipulation with nothing but your gut. You had to sense moods like radar. You had to read silence like encrypted code. You had to walk through conversations like you were diffusing bombs. Because you were. Your childhood, tactical conditioning, that toxic job, live-fire scenario, every betrayal, field recon, every panic attack you suffocated in a public bathroom stall. That was breath control under pressure. That was training. They don't teach that at Quantico. You learned timing not from clocks, but from survival. You didn't read people. You scanned them. Tiny flickers in voice tone, micro movements, that shift in posture. You clocked it all. Not because you wanted to, because you had to. Your nervous system recorded everything. That's why your instinct kicks in before their logic even catches up. They're trying to bottle that. They're feeding your data to machine learning models and still can't mimic it. Because what you do isn't programming. It's pain-encoded precision. It's pattern memory, built from nights no one saw, from choices no one else had to make. You taught yourself how to disappear in plain sight. To shrink when necessary, to explode when cornered, to use deflection as camouflage, to weaponize indifference, to control the chaos without letting it consume you. And the irony? You thought you were falling behind. You thought being too emotional, too intense, too much was a defect. But it was data. It was sensory saturation. It was information absorption at a military-grade level. They had instructors, you had trauma, they had war games, you had life. You internalized what most soldiers have to drill for years. That ability to stay alert, hyper-aware, calculated yet reactive. That's not just survival anymore. That's high-functioning danger. And they see it. They read the posture. They feel the energy. You walk in with nothing in your hands, but everyone gets nervous because they know, subconsciously, they're standing next to something unpredictable. And in a world addicted to control, unpredictable is the only real power. They don't fear your volume, they fear your quiet. Because quiet people who've seen too much don't bluff. They don't threaten, they assess, they watch. And when they move, it's already too late to stop them. You could burn it all down without raising your voice. Because you've studied the blueprint, memorized the weak points, learned the timing, perfected the pause. All while pretending to be fine. You became the kind of threat that wears a hoodie, not a badge. That speaks softly, not loudly. That watches more than it talks. The kind they ignore until they can't. Until the outcome screams louder than the warnings they brushed off. Until the damage is irreversible, and all they can ask is, how the hell did we not see that coming? They didn't see you coming because they weren't trained to recognize power that wasn't obvious. They weren't trained to spot covert greatness, but someone was. And that's why your story is being dissected by men behind mirrored glass, because you broke every rule they believed in, and somehow you still came out on top. Not clean, not polished, but untouchable. Keep your head low, let them underestimate, let them run diagnostics. They're reading the second draft of your unintentional doctrine while you're already rewriting the third. Because your next move, they haven't even invented a name for it yet. They're still trying to figure out how you turned survival into strategy without ever attending a briefing. They think it was luck. They keep labeling it as anomaly. Because the alternative? That someone with no resources, no rank, no clearance, outmaneuvered systems, built by billion-dollar institutions, is too terrifying for them to admit. You weren't aiming to be a blueprint. You were just trying not to drown. But the way you swam, untraceable stroke pattern, zero splash, maximum propulsion. They can't replicate it in labs. They can't train it in soldiers, because it was forged in silence, in suppressed tears, in gaslit moments, in rooms where you had to pretend everything was okay, while your mind was tracking every threat like radar. Every time you were dismissed, you memorized what dismissal looked like. Every time you were ignored, you learned how invisibility worked. And each time they tried to box you in, you didn't just escape. You studied the architecture. Your rage isn't loud. It's precise, surgical. The kind of rage that disassembles people gently, with words so well placed, they don't realize they've been flayed open until they're alone with the echo of what you said. And when they think you're weak because you're quiet, they fail to notice the detachment, that cold, calculating detachment that comes not from lack of care, but from overexposure. You've seen too much, you've felt too much, and it didn't kill you, it recalibrated you, turned empathy into interrogation, turned kindness into chess, turned your mirror neurons into weapons-grade emotional intelligence. You know how people move when they're lying. You hear the pause before the excuse. You see the flicker in the eyes before the betrayal. You don't trust words anymore. You trust pattern recognition. And they're still operating on surface-level charm, while you're 5 layers beneath them, analyzing pressure points they don't know they're exposing. They call it paranoia. You call it preemptive damage control. Because when you were young, no one came to save you. So you learned how to be the early warning system. You caught red flags before they were even dyed red. That's why they feel naked around you. That's why people get uncomfortable in your silence. They know you see everything. You weren't made in a lab. You weren't groomed for intelligence work. You were forged in raw human hell, and it gave you skills money can't buy and schools can't teach. The kind of skills intelligence agencies build shadow budgets, trying to simulate, but they'll never get the formula right, because the one ingredient they can't replicate is your pain. Your unglamorous, unfiltered, unsupervised pain that built cognitive weaponry from broken moments and turned quiet suffering into high-frequency perception. They're realizing it too late. That you were never unpredictable. You were just misread, miscalculated. They kept trying to measure you with rulers that don't apply to your shape. And now they're rewriting the scales, renaming the variables, shuffling around definitions to account for the glitch in the data that keeps outperforming their top recruits. You are the glitch, the ghost in their machine, the anomaly they can't trace, because your footprint isn't in systems, it's in impact. They keep updating their frameworks to explain your existence, shifting psychological models, rewriting what resilience looks like, rewording failure protocols because you keep doing what their systems say you shouldn't survive. And it's driving them insane. Because everything they rely on, predictability, hierarchy, measurable control, crumbles in your presence. You're not chaotic. You're calibrated for chaos. They don't get the difference. You don't start the storm. You adapt faster than anyone caught in it. They throw curveballs, and you catch them like you expected them. Because in your world, the curveball was the warm-up. You stopped being shocked by betrayal the third time you were stabbed with a smile. You stopped relying on rescue the fifth time the person promising to help watched you drown just to feel taller. And still, you didn't become bitter. You became lethal. Not in destruction, but in perception. You stopped reacting. You started studying. Every interaction became an intelligence operation. Every disappointment, a field report. Every betrayal, a recon mission that taught you exactly what weakness smells like. You know who's insecure by how they enter a room. You know who's lying by how they breathe. You know who's fragile behind their pride. And they have no clue that their tells are so obvious to someone who had to decode danger from tone shifts before they could even drive. You were emotional? That wasn't weakness. That was data flooding in faster than their nervous systems can handle. You feel more because you absorb more. They try to numb the world. You read it. With all the static, all the chaos, all the grief. You never stopped reading the field, even when it broke your heart. Even when it blurred your vision, even when it hurt so bad you thought you'd never get up again. But you got up. Every time. Slower, maybe. Heavier, sure. But with more clarity, with fewer illusions, with sharper instincts and less mercy. They see that. It's in your walk. It's in your stare. It's in the way you hold eye contact a little too long for their comfort. It's in the way you don't laugh unless it's real. In the way you've stopped explaining yourself. They don't know whether to respect it or fear it, because you didn't climb a ladder. You dragged yourself through fire and came out with a blueprint no school could have given you. You're not competing. You're beyond the scoreboard. They think it's arrogance. It isn't. It's exhaustion. You've played the game they worshipped and beat it in silent mode. And now you don't need validation. You need results. You don't need recognition. You need range. You don't need to be seen. You already see everything. The ones in suits are trying to keep up. The ones in labs are trying to map your cognition. But you keep shifting because you're not one version of yourself. You're every version that ever survived, all layered into one mind that learned how to function like a shape-shifting organism. You're not stuck in an identity. You're not trapped in a title. You're fluid under pressure, malleable in crisis. And when everything collapses, you stabilize. Not because you're calm, but because you've collapsed before and memorized the pattern of recovery. You know what it's like to rebuild from zero with nothing but a cracked voice and a clenched jaw. You know how to restart your mind while smiling at people who have no idea you're bleeding internally from things they wouldn't survive 10 minutes of. You know how to talk peace while preparing for war. Because you had to grow up negotiating with madness in homes, in institutions, in relationships, that taught you survival was not optional. You developed protocols in your mind before you even knew the word for them. Emergency scripts, exit strategies, emotional decoys to distract predators, calculated silences that could freeze a room. You were negotiating peace treaties with volatile egos long before anyone called it conflict resolution. You were running psychological triage while people just saw you as too sensitive. They didn't realize you were monitoring vitals, not physical, emotional. Tracking who was about to snap, who was spiraling, who was a risk to themselves, who was a threat to you. All of it done behind the eyes, while your face played nice for the crowd. Your nervous system became a surveillance drone. Your intuition turned into an intel brief. And every time they called you dramatic, they were just too dull to recognize that you were reading pre-explosive behavior patterns. You warned people. You always did. But they didn't listen, and when the bombs went off, they acted surprised. But you weren't. You never are. Because you already lived through that scenario in your head 1,000 different ways. You practiced survival in simulation so often that by the time real crisis hits, you're chilling inside the chaos like it's your natural habitat. That's the part that unsettles them. That calm, that eerie, surgical calm you hold when everyone else is losing their minds. That silence you carry that doesn't signal weakness, but readiness. They don't understand it because they've only ever known safety. They confuse privilege for strategy, comfort for strength. You don't. You grew up around detonations, emotional, verbal, psychological, and learned not to flinch when things explode. You learned to measure the blast radius in real time. You don't panic, you calculate. Even your pacing is different. You walk into rooms already reading the layout, measuring escape routes, tracking voice tones, cataloging microaggressions, gauging who's masking hostility behind fake grins. People think you're quiet because you're shy. They don't get that you're recording everything. And when you speak with that uncanny precision that hits like a sniper round. Clean, sudden, undeniable. They study that in elite programs, spend years trying to teach situational awareness. And here you are, wired to it. No training, just life. Life sharpened you like a blade and left no handle for anyone else to grip. And that's the part no one can copy. They can steal your lines, study your behaviors, try to mimic your posture, but they can't replicate the pressure that made you. They want your poise, but not your pain. They want your power, but not your past. They want your instincts, but not the environments that demanded you develop them. You became what you needed to survive. And then you kept evolving, even after survival was no longer the goal. Because once you realized you could read systems, you rewrote your own. Not for them, not for glory, but because somewhere deep inside, you knew that if you didn't shape your mind like steel, you'd be one more casualty in a world that doesn't mourn the misunderstood. You trained in silence, tested yourself against your own nightmares, did reps in your mind at 4 a.m. while staring at the ceiling trying to suppress the tremor in your hands before another fake normal day. You showed up to life every damn day with wounds still open under your clothes, and no one noticed because your performance was flawless. They're noticing now, but not for the reasons they expected. Not because you screamed, not because you broke down, but because you're moving in patterns they can't predict. Because your presence keeps distorting the hierarchy. Because your mere existence is bending rules they thought were written in stone. And every time they try to measure you, you've already moved. Every time they try to categorize you, you evolve. Every time they try to understand you, they end up staring at their own reflections. wondering how they missed the signs while you were 10 steps ahead, quietly watching the walls shift behind their backs. Well, 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 look who's still alive. You ever notice how they only respect you when you get loud? When you start breaking shit? When you stop smiling and start showing teeth? You ever notice how quiet the room gets when the joke starts talking back? Because you were the punchline, the afterthought, the warm-up act for their ego trips. You were the meme, the running joke, the look at him trying to be somebody moment. They watched you fumble, laughed from the sidelines, sent the screenshots around, whispered when you walked in, but you sat through it, chest tight, smile fake, thoughts loud, nights sleepless, and the whole time you were studying, not sulking. You were storing pain, not wasting it. You were downloading every fake laugh, every side eye, every backhanded compliment, and feeding it to the monster they didn't think you had in you. They thought you were built for the shadows, a background extra in their movie, a disposable name in a group chat. You didn't talk back, didn't flex, didn't retaliate. You took it on the chin like you were made of foam. But inside, you were building bombs. See, people mistake your silence for softness. They mistake your patience for permission. They think 'cause you didn't bark, you ain't got bite. They thought 'cause you took the L in public, it wasn't gonna turn into a lesson behind closed doors. They forgot that even the clown can burn the circus down if you push him far enough. You weren't weak, you were waiting. And when the time came, oh, you didn't just speak. You flipped the whole damn stage. No warning, no build-up, just straight chaos. Tables upside down, lights out, spotlights on you, and them, mouths open, eyes wide, real quiet. That's the part they weren't ready for, the part where you became the show. Not the joke, not the sidekick, not the filler scene, the whole fucking show. Suddenly the same ones that laughed don't make a sound. The ones that knew you'd never make it can't even make eye contact. The ones that threw dirt on your name, drowning in your shadow now. Because you weren't chasing clout. You weren't flexing for likes. You were in the trenches, bleeding for it, losing sleep for it. Getting up with nothing left but still moving. And all the while, they thought you were losing. They didn't know you were loading. You ain't loud. You ain't fake humble either. You're the type that disappears and comes back a F-King storm. You don't ask for a seat at the table. You flip it, rebuild it, and make 'em pay to sit at yours. You let 'em clown you. Yeah. You wore the paint. You juggled their trash. You took the fall, the shade, the fake cheers. But deep down, you knew what they didn't. You knew the curtain was coming down. You knew the next act was yours. You knew the moment would come when all that pain, all that silence, all that shame they tried to drown you in, it would become fuel. And when it did, you didn't clap back. You burned the F-King script. People only see the flip. They don't see the build-up. They don't see the self-doubt, the nights you almost quit, the moments you looked in the mirror and couldn't recognize yourself. They don't see the tears that dried up into rage, the heartbreak that hardened into ambition, the days you had to fake normal when your insides were screaming. But that's what makes you dangerous. You didn't flip because you lost control. You flipped because you took it back, and it scared them. Because there's nothing scarier than the one they wrote off coming back unrecognizable. There's nothing scarier than someone who was once on their knees, standing taller than the whole F-King room. There's nothing scarier than someone who's been through hell, and still looks you dead in the eye, smirking like he runs it now. You let him think it was a joke, but you became the punchline that hit back. And the wildest part? You didn't even yell. You didn't need to. Your presence started screaming for you. You walked in a room and the temperature dropped. People started acting like they forgot how loud they used to laugh. They fidget. They stutter. They pretend they always saw something in you. You see it in their eyes, that twitch, that silent recalculation. Like, wait, when did they get like this? It's funny, isn't it? How fast they forget the things they said when they thought you were stuck. When you had no connections, no clout, no backup, no money, no plan B. Just grit and a half-dead dream duct-taped to your chest. You were bleeding self-worth and they were feeding on it like hyenas. Acting bold 'cause you were quiet. Acting brave 'cause you were too broken to fight back. But here's the thing about breaking. Eventually, it stops being a crack. It becomes an edge. And you've been sharpening that edge in silence, day after day, year after year. While they were clout chasing, you were pressure cooking. While they were bragging, you were building in places nobody bothered to look. You learned how to flip pain into power, embarrassment into ammo, isolation into insight. You got used to being the underdog, to watching everybody else win first, to eating last, to cheering for people who wouldn't even notice if you disappeared. And somewhere in that dark, dirty corner of being overlooked, you built something nuclear. They weren't ready for that. They were only prepared for the version of you they could laugh at. The soft-spoken, second-guessing, people-pleasing version of you that still believed if you were good enough, they'd accept you. But they didn't want good. They wanted less. Less of your voice, less of your energy, less of your presence. Because somewhere deep down, even when you were quiet, they felt it. That current, that weight, that thing in you you hadn't even fully tapped into yet. That's why they poked. That's why they laughed. That's why they talked wild when your back was turned. They knew. They knew one day the whole vibe was gonna shift. That the same stage they used to mock you from was gonna be yours. They just hoped you'd stay tired, stay drained, stay humble enough to play dead in a room full of noise. But you didn't. You caught your breath. You locked in. You stopped explaining, stopped defending, stopped trying to be seen, and started making sure they couldn't unsee you. You let them clown you, sat there with the painted face, playing quiet while they giggled. They thought you'd be a background character forever. They forgot what happens when a clown stops dancing and starts directing the F. King show. And now you're the energy that walks in before you do. You're the reason the air shifts. You're the name they whisper when they think no one's listening. You're the glitch in their confidence, the static in their smooth little script. You don't just flip the stage. You own the entire damn theater. You own the entire damn theater, and they hate that. Not 'cause you did something wrong, but 'cause you survived everything they swore would break you. 'Cause you came back sharper, colder, louder, without saying a word. You didn't just flip the script. You made it unreadable to the ones that tried to write you off. They don't laugh anymore. They watch, silently, obsessively. Some still pretending they don't see you. Others trying to circle back like they always knew. But you can hear it in the way they say your name now. Not casual, not condescending. They say it like it means something, like it shakes something in them they can't name. Because it does. You remind them of what happens when a ghost starts walking in daylight. When the one they tried to erase becomes too big to ignore. When somebody they dismissed starts living proof that you can't bury the real forever. You let 'em clown you, and they thought that made you the fool. They didn't realize you were documenting every single moment, storing it, weaponizing it, turning it into blueprints, into fuel, into strategy. While they mocked your pace, you built momentum. While they posted highlight reels, you were living behind the scenes scars, and now you're unshakable. Not because you're untouchable, but because you've been touched by fire and didn't burn up. You're dangerous now because you've lost before and it didn't kill you. Because you've heard every insult, felt every doubt, wore every L like armor. They look at you and see someone unrecognizable. That's because you're not playing the same game. You're not here for claps. You're not chasing applause from crowds that used to boo you. You don't want their validation anymore. You're here to remind them that the ones they throw away don't just disappear. They transform. They evolve into something darker, smarter, hungrier. You used to need a reason. Now you are one. You used to chase doors. Now you build gates. You used to shrink when they stared. Now you dare 'em to look harder. Every scar on you is loud now. Not hidden, not shameful. They're proof, evidence, receipts. And those same clowns, they're sitting front row, watching a show they weren't invited to. Can't touch the stage, can't control the light, can't even pretend they helped you get here. You let 'em clown you. But they forgot something about clowns. Clowns know how to flip moods. Clowns know how to steal attention. Clowns know how to walk into chaos and turn it into a moment. That's the difference. They were laughing at the paint on your face, but never realized you were the one pulling the strings behind the curtain the whole time. They thought you were clueless, but you were calculated. You didn't just flip the stage. You made the whole building shake. You made the whole building shake. And the silence after? That's not peace. That's shock. That's the sound of people realizing they misjudged you in high definition. That's the weight of 100 fake smiles cracking all at once. 'Cause you didn't just come back louder. You came back different. There's a new frequency in your voice now, a tone that doesn't ask to be heard. It demands it, and that rattles people. They liked you better when you were unsure, when you second-guessed every word, when you kept your wins quiet because you didn't want to seem too much. They loved that version of you, soft, nervous, easy to ignore. But this version walks in with scars showing, chin high, energy off the F-King charts. You don't move like you're trying to prove anything. You move like you already know, like you've seen too much, felt too much, been through too much to ever shrink again. You carry all that hurt like armor now, and they hate it. They hate that they can't trigger you anymore, that you don't flinch, that you don't react the way they remember, because they were addicted to your weakness. It gave them power, made them feel superior. But now that you flipped, they're the ones tripping over their words. They're the ones nervous when your name gets brought up. They're the ones refreshing your page just to keep tabs. You became unpredictable. And unpredictable. That's a threat. You don't fit in any box anymore. Too loud for the quiet ones. Too real for the fake ones. Too smart for the manipulative ones. Too strong for the ones who thought they could break you and walk away clean. You're not looking for revenge. You're looking them dead in the eye and letting your existence speak louder than anything you could ever say. Because when you flipped that stage, when you ripped the whole damn structure down and stood on the rubble, you told the world, I'm not who you thought I was. I'm what you never saw coming. You let them clown you. They laughed at your mess, laughed when you fell, laughed when you trusted the wrong ones, laughed when you had nothing, when you were starting over. when your name didn't ring in any rooms. But now your name, it echoes, and it doesn't echo soft. It hits walls, bounces, lingers, makes people pause mid-sentence, makes old friends feel nervous and fake ones feel found out. You walk in, and they remember every slick thing they said, every moment they smirked when you were drowning. They remember, and they know they can't erase it now, because you became the reminder. The living proof that the ones who get laughed at don't stay jokes forever. That the quiet one might be the storm, that the forgotten one might be the fucking legend in disguise. You flipped the stage, and they still don't know how to recover from it. They still don't know how to recover from it. Because it wasn't just a comeback. It was a reckoning. You didn't return looking for applause. You came back looking like the price of disrespect. And they felt it, every single one of them. Felt it in their chest when your name popped up in rooms they swore you'd never reach. Felt it in their throat when people started mentioning you in conversations that never used to include you. Felt it in their stomach when they realized your silence wasn't weakness. It was precision. You were calculating every move behind the mask. They thought you were off track. Nah, you were off radar, low signal, off grid. And they had no clue what kind of monster grows in the dark. No clue what happens when someone with nothing left to lose starts playing for legacy, not likes, for power, not permission. They used to smirk when you spoke. Now they shut the fuck up and listen. You built that. You earned that shift. You flipped the whole energy of the room just by surviving. SEST they couldn't even handle in theory. Most of them would have folded where you kept standing. They would have snapped where you stitched yourself back together. Blind, bloody, and unrecognizable. But that's the difference. You weren't just trying to make it. You were trying to make sure you never get played again. That changes how you move, how you talk, how you walk into rooms. You don't beg for attention. Attention bends toward you. You don't post for validation. You post for impact. You don't talk to be heard. You talk to haunt. You let them clown you. But you studied them while they laughed. You learned their patterns, saw through their hype, caught the cracks in their confidence behind all that noise, and you never forgot how it felt when nobody stood up for you. That's why you don't play friendly. That's why your circle's smaller now, tighter, sharper. That's why you look people dead in the eye when they fake smile, just to let them know. You remember everything. This version of you doesn't flinch. This version of you has already lost too much to play it safe. This version of you walks around with the weight of every betrayal, every breakdown, every beat down you weren't supposed to get back up from. And you wear it like a crown. You're not angry. You're awakened. You're not trying to prove them wrong anymore. You already did. You're proving something to yourself now, that you never needed them, that their opinions were currency in a world you don't even walk through anymore. That every time they pointed at you laughing, they were marking the spot where the ground would split open beneath them. You flipped the whole stage, and now you're standing there. Not just as a survivor, but as a spectacle they can't look away from, a spectacle they can't look away from. That's what eats them up the most, the fact that you're unavoidable now, that no matter how far they scroll, your presence lingers, that every room they walk into might have your name hanging in the air, making the walls feel tighter, that the person they joked about over drinks became the person they secretly study in silence, praying no one catches them watching. You became the warning, the living, breathing consequence of what happens when someone gets pushed too far and decides to stop bleeding and start building. You didn't just glow up. You weaponized your glow. You turned every crack they left in you into a signal flare. Now they feel it every time your name trends, every time your story gets brought up, every time someone else they respect starts quoting you. The stage you flipped. It ain't just about revenge. It's about domination. You don't want them to feel bad. You want them to feel small. You want them to look at everything you are now and understand that they were never the giant. You were just holding your power back out of courtesy, out of naivety, out of some twisted hope that if you were kind enough, loyal enough, soft enough, they'd keep you around. But they chose ego. They chose mockery. They chose to clown you because they thought you'd never bite. Until you did. And now, your silence hits harder than their loudest scream. Your walk hits harder than their whole platform. You walk in the room and their memory starts choking them out from the inside. They remember the looks, the laughs, the back talk, and they realize you ain't the one who changed. You're just the one who stopped shrinking. The truth is, they didn't clown you because you were weak. They clowned you because they saw it. That thing in you, that threat, that storm, and they needed to get ahead of it. They needed to beat you to the punchline, drown you in noise before you found your rhythm. But you did anyway, and not just rhythm. You found rage. You found a voice that doesn't shake anymore. You found a lane they can't follow you in, because they built their whole identity on tearing others down, and you built yours on walking through hell and still standing tall enough to be seen from heaven. You let them clown you, but they forgot that the ones who endure the humiliation, the loneliness, the lies, the fake friends, the sabotage, those are the ones who never forget how to move once they catch momentum. You didn't just flip the stage. You rewired the entire show, changed the lighting, burned the script, replaced every character who once looked down on you. You ain't acting anymore. You're directing. And this act, it ain't for their comfort. It's for your crown. Your crown. And it ain't plastic. It ain't glitter. It ain't gold-plated. It's heavy, forged from everything they tried to kill in you. Every night you stayed awake with your thoughts screaming louder than the city. Every fake friend that used your silence as a weapon. Every time you showed up for people who disappeared the second it was your turn to lean. You built it from the ashes they left you in. They thought you'd crumble, thought you'd go quietly, thought the shame would eat you alive. But you turned shame into steel, turned heartbreak into heat, turned isolation into alchemy. They gave you pain, and you turned it into presence. You don't just exist anymore. You haunt. You walk through places like your footsteps are reminders. Every step says, I remember. Every breath says, I'm still here. Every glance says, you really thought I was finished. You're not chasing closure. You are the closure. They don't get to feel better about it. They don't get to apologize once you've built the castle. They don't get to act innocent now that you've gone viral. They were loud when you were small. Let them choke on their silence now that you're undeniable. Because this version of you, this version doesn't beg for space. You take up room like oxygen. You move like thunder. You dress like you know too much. Smile like you've seen things they couldn't survive. You're not soft anymore. You're sharp. Not because life made you bitter, but because life taught you that survival is art. And you became a fucking masterpiece. You let them clown you. But they didn't know clowns become icons when the lights hit them right.